Work is not a prison, but you are made its guard. Alright, this is a weird way to start a video, but I think I have to share something with you which may be really crucial here. And that, for that matter, is I'm hitting a point at where no matter how many videos I would try to create, or no matter how much I would try to improve, it's almost this dissatisfaction of perfecting to a different standard. And the more I try to create, like making those videos or trying to write about something, the less satisfying it became to be, the more you would try to focus on an outcome. Now, this isn't necessarily about the delusion of being overly obsessive about goals, but more about figuring out about what work is about. And like, why do we work in the first place? Why is something considered to be good and high value, whereas another ideal is mostly disregarded? And you could see it a lot also with many trends going out throughout history. One style of video making gets popular, one trend that wasn't popular back then all of a sudden glows up, and all of the people tend to be excited about it. And so what is it that makes it so desirable and interesting? And the theory that I want to present here is that work is essentially about the pleasure of the other one of whom we try to define as approval. Because when you try to work, let's say produce commodities or in this sense create value, we are not the ones that define the value system. The value system is always pre-written by what tends to be considered to be really desirable by somebody else. But usually we don't know who this other person is. And this is not as like not knowing the audience or not knowing the customer that you're producing something. It's like you can't really properly know, because all that you can know is a made-up identity. You almost assume like there's a certain group of people that have almost like this essence that will perceive this kind of value. And because it's so approval-driven as an overall system, you don't know to what you're approving at the same time. And I bet you can relate to this feeling when you try to get a lot of things done, but no matter how much you get done, you feel dissatisfied. There's always more to do. There's always more that you can create and do. And even if you did, well, you're happy for one single moment till you try to move on and try to enhance it further. So there's an underlying and infinite, no-end situation to it. And this is because any desire that get fulfilled, the more greedy over time it will become. The more emotionally satisfied and uplifted you feel, the more it creates a certain amount of lack. Like, for example, some ice cream that you would eat and you find so enjoyable that you try to crave another one and another one. But when you try to create work, what we tend to crave more is more of this existential satisfaction. Let's say you created something really valuable. And because it is valuable and you think of it as valuable, you think, okay, I felt really great about it. How can I produce more of this value? But because we don't really know of what this underlying value is, it creates almost this confusion from that we tend to seek around it. So like, we try to make a great video, but we don't really know what a great video truly is. So what we end up doing in the best case scenario is you begin to look for some features that would try to define what a great video is. We would watch a lot of this self-improvement content for content creators. We would try to fix ourselves up. We would try to make ourselves fit into a standard. We would try to satisfy ourselves the most by a matrix of number or a matrix of money. And because we cannot fit into something which we truly aren't, we get really frustrated. And because there are also so many possibilities to do something right, at some point we won't really know what we want. But so frustratingly, but also fascinating about this organization of ideology is that It's not about the end result that satisfies us, but it's more about the feeling of containment that we know that we have a way that we want to go within our life. It's the feeling that we have a direction that seems to satisfy ourselves the most. The moment when we hit where we have no desire and we wake up feeling like, I don't want to do anything today, is actually one of the most painful experiences on an existential level that you tend to go through. Because no matter what you tend to do, it will never satisfy you. And so the seeking of production is also the seeking of existential satisfaction. But this dread will also get another layer to it, and that is the moment where you realize that you are within this system of production, that all essentially your life has been about is producing this kind of value, that all your orientations and desires are mostly culturally formed. And because of this awareness that you are within these ideals that are taught to you and you try to fit yourself into this group, what you end up realizing is that you have more like this absence of identity. And not in the sense that you don't exist, but more in the sense like you cannot find yourself approving into any form of ideology because you always can perceive the underlying system of how the ideology tends to work. And it's really problematic because if you cannot fit yourself into an ideology or a way that you want to live your life, you all of a sudden begin to feel lost. Like, okay, how do I do anything? Like, I mean, I had goals, I had probably relationships, I have friends with that I could connect to if I had more similarities with them, in this sense, if I would believe a certain way. And this existential dread of knowing of what you are part of is actually also so disheartening because now you don't know what to do, how to think, how to act, and still you need to do a certain thing that would enable you to earn a certain amount of money or be satisfied and fulfilled within your life. And this brings to the point that ideology, even to some extent, is necessary to live a fulfilling life. Even in the awareness of it, like we still have to figure out how to be satisfied while also being aware of one's own dogmas, you could call them in this sense. And what I could learn from this essentially is that, as I said in the beginning of this video, that work is about the pleasure of others. Why do we need to act in a certain performative manner in order to satisfy other people? Like, if we openly approach the direction of this issue that to work means to satisfy other people, why not do it in a direct manner? Why not connect to people directly and even come to help them with a certain way of resolve? And so, even if you can figure out about, you could call it more of the community relationship that you may have towards other people, the question that's still left behind is like, what am I going to be as a person want to do? I would not be out as altruistic and communitarian. What is left within my life that I want to do and to create? And I think precisely that there's no answer to this question of how to resolve this inner resistance of not performing and producing a certain way. It's actually also the thing that maintains ourselves to be happy. If we would be able to look through this internal resistance that we have, in this sense, alright, I don't feel really good enough, I'm not performing well enough, and you will be fully satisfied, and what you will be left of is that not only you will have nothing to complain about, but you will also not be really capable of being truly happy about something. And this is also a problem which I find within a lot of communist thought, for that matter, in this sense that criticizing that the valuing of production and solving problems to the market is not a credible solution because It won't be able to resolve, first of all, every issue, but second of all, it's also immoral to create an entire value system within people based on how they produce and create value. I think that the production of value is, as a system from that desire, is in of itself built and it's itself inevitable. Because even if you would come to criticize the current form of value, in this case, be it, for example, performance or productivity, that's being criticized within the market, we still would find another value, even in the most radical communist way or approach that you will try to find around to justify a direction for life. Because there's an underlying need for this satisfaction, this ideal, in order to have a way, I would say that this suffering is inevitable. But also can be done is that we could still focus on the process of the creation, being more oriented towards the action rather than the ideal, even if the ideal is still being present. To act as though the ideal isn't there could actually also halfway resolve the issue, even if it's not a long-term solution. And this is not like a saying that you should be completely in denial about it, but it's also like to saying that it wouldn't maintain itself as functional if you would try to act to perform absent of this underlying drive and presence. Because look at it this way, order is itself inevitable, and even if the order that you're living to is not compatible towards your, let's call them interests, because to call them desires would be not that far accurate, but let's stick with interest. You cannot undo an order, but you can always change an order and try to adopt it always in a way that would make it functional. So instead of changing yourself, it's more considered to change the goal, or that case, in order to satisfy your orientation. In my case, how this would resolve is that all of my desires were essentially based on how much views I would get, how many subscribers I would achieve, how generally I would be able to perform in comparison to other content creators. And even I wouldn't call myself a good editor or someone that is easily understood and is easy to pay attention to. What changes the relationship to it is by focusing on the action in of itself, in this sense. The reason why I started creating content videos is because I want to reach an audience and I want to share those ideas and I want to make some concepts more accessible. But because there are multiple relationships towards what you can aspire, desire to, and there are many things that you can want from it, there is no one hand orientation towards any desire. Because desire in itself is scattered. It will find itself many multiple ways from that it can orient itself. But it's only upon your decision how you then to organize your own desires. Now this gets really interesting because now you have to desire to reorganize your own desire, and from that this desire tends to come from. But it's really helpful to know that your desire and your orientation to life isn't fixed. And you are not pre-written to an order or to a value system of standards. You can always doubt and look under the doubt and still to figure out from where this line of thought comes from. And by knowing it, you will essentially be able to redirect the direction and find a more compatible goal towards you. Because the goal in of itself is not the goal and it's the journey, you can now decide the journey that you want to create. You can, in fact, outright desire. You don't have to stick to a certain desire. And knowing that, you could also adapt it in the best way you could find it more valuable and useful. And the question that I want to leave this video behind is that What kind of desire would be the best desire you would like yourself to orient yourself from? Which desire would be the best in this sense to live your life in a better way from? And in my case, it was just to simply reconnect with the desire to express myself rather than focusing on numbers. Because there are multiple sources of dopamine and pleasures that we can receive throughout, we can come to narrow down this form of pleasure by creating almost like this neoliberal self-ideology that we tend to create. And yes, even though we are trapping ourselves in this sense, but even more optimal to this thinking is that now you can trap yourself and other people could trap you. Because now you can create your own system rather falling down to a certain system that you tend to adapt yourself to. And I know this response would make you cynical, but still there is no way around it. But even if this take may be controversial, I'm generally open what you may think about it in the comments. But yeah, this is a genuine take. Your desire isn't fixed and you're free to create your own forms of desire by reorganizing the system for yourself that would enable you to create an optimal life. If the system that you're living to isn't compatible for you, you can readjust the system within yourself so you will suffer less of the consequences. But thus ideology is inevitable, you will still have to face it. But this was that's my interpretation. And yeah, I would be rejoiced to know what you would think about it.